Are you stuck in Elo Hell? The Elo Hell that is known as Platinum in Overwatch? Well, if you are, I'm here to help. In today's video, I'm going to be going over what lots of Platinum players do wrong, the mindset that you're going to need to adopt to become a Diamond player and not remain in Platinum. We're going to be doing this video for every rank below Diamond, so if you're not a Platinum player, don't worry. And also, the tips in this video may help you as well. I go over a lot of valuable information here. I actually recently spent a lot of time in Platinum ranking up my alt account because I played with a lot of lower ranked friends who are in gold and my account got placed in Platinum. I've recently ranked it up to Diamond and I'm here to share my experience with you to help you do the same. Let's start by addressing the major problems many Platinum players face. The first problem is one that stems from thinking you're better than everyone else, and sometimes it can be caused by thinking you're already a Diamond player, when you're really only in Platinum. Having a positive mindset is a good thing. Assuming you're a good player is fine, but when it becomes an ego problem and you assume that you're better than everyone else, that's where it becomes bad. The problem I'm explaining here is a lack of trust. Lacking trust in Platinum is a huge problem. Potentially the biggest, actually. You see, it isn't uncommon for players to consider Platinum Elo Hell because they've been stuck there for so long. This leads to a distrust of your teammates because, after all, it's all their fault, right? They're the ones holding you back. That is the mindset you need to lose. You need to get rid of it. You need to accept that your teammates are at the same or a similar rank to you and trust that they're gonna do their job. Players that don't trust their teammates tend to try to do everything on their own. And when you try to do everything on your own, you're only going to die and you're only going to lose the game. So doing this is pretty bad. Let's actually split up this part into 3 sections, one for each of the 3 roles we have in Overwatch: DPS, healer, and tank. DPS players in Plat usually know the right thing to do. They know you should group up, they know not to try to 1v6, but they don't execute. They never execute, actually. They constantly try to be the carry of the team, the one doing everything, and it causes them to play really bad. So many Genjis and McCrees think they need to flank the entire enemy team, kill them all, and cap the point, all on their own. As a DPS player, don't compromise powerful strategies and proven tactics because you don't trust your team. I'd rather have a mediocre McCree behind a Reinhardt shield with his team than a really good McCree who goes off and tries to kill the entire enemy team on his own, because that McCree isn't going to get anything done. He may get some trade frags, get some 1-for-1s, but he's not being a team player. The McCree that is playing with his team, that is mediocre, but behind his Reinhardt shield, is going to be far better than the McCree trying to do everything on his own. Now, let's talk about tank players in Plat. I think you all have one problem that trumps all the rest: not playing with your team, but in a different way than the DPS players. The tanks in Overwatch have some crazy powerful ults and abilities, but Plat players totally waste them super often. This is hard to explain, so I'm going to do so with examples. Many Platinum Zarya players and Reinhardt players are very good at knowing when they're going to land their ultimates on a lot of enemies. You can easily tell when your Graviton Surge will suck up a lot of people, or when your Earth Shatter will hammer down on a huge group of enemies. This isn't limited to ultimates though. They often know also that Winston and D.Va can go for the enemy backliners and should be able to take out supports and snipers with ease. The problem many tank players in Platinum seem to face goes back to the lack of trust. It's not about knowing when your abilities are going to do well against the enemies, it's about knowing the timings and when your team can follow up on them. How many times have you seen a Reinhardt Earth Shatter and then say, I hammered the entire enemy team down? Where were you all? Or a Zarya who said, I caught all 6 enemies in my Graviton Surge. How did we not just team wipe? Those are mistakes that Platinum tanks make. It isn't your team's fault. As a tank, you need to be communicating when you're using your ultimate, and you need to make sure your team is ready to follow up on it. Don't just use your ultimate because you think you can catch a lot of enemies. You're going to need help dealing with all of them. A 1v6 as a Zarya, even if all the enemies are caught in a Graviton Surge, isn't going to happen. You're going to lose, you're going to waste your very powerful ultimate, and it could potentially cost you the game. This isn't just limited to ultimates though. It happens with regular abilities. As Winston, when you're diving the enemy backline, or the enemy sniper, their Widowmaker they have up somewhere, you can't just do that willy-nilly. You can't just go jump on that Widowmaker and expect to get the kill all the time. When I was ranking up my alt account in Platinum, I was playing a lot of Widowmaker. And you know what a lot of divas did? They flew right up to me while I was with my team, put up their defense matrix, and they tried to like boot me and kill me. When a diva approaches me as Widowmaker, I just laugh because they often don't approach with the help of their team, and diva doesn't have as much mobility as Widowmaker when she has her hookup, and Widowmaker can easily escape to her team. You need your team's support to use these abilities. Diva is great for initiating a fight on a Widowmaker, but she can't do it all on her own. You need your team's help. The same goes for Graviton Surge, the same goes for Winston and Earthshatter from Reinhardt. These are things you need to know. You shouldn't be saying, when can I use this ability to catch everyone? A Graviton Surge that catches 2 people with your team around is better than a Graviton Surge that catches the entire enemy team if you're the only one near them. Whew, I got a little heated there. I had some flashbacks to really, really bad tank players. Solve these problems, guys, and you will become better. Now, let's talk about support mains in Platinum, all 2 of you that exist. There are only 4 healers, so we're just going to talk about them all individually. First, Ana players. You are not a DPS. Seriously, if you play the game as Ana and you shoot more at enemies than friendlies, you're not doing your job. You have some amazing burst healing as Ana, so use it. You should only be shooting at enemies when you know you won't need to heal anytime soon. Even if your team is on full HP, if there's a fight happening or you think you're going to need to heal, save your ammo for heals. Many Ana players shoot at enemies because all friendlies are on high HP. They don't need the healing. And then when their friendlies take damage, they are caught reloading or on low ammo, and they can't get the heals off they need, and in the end, they lose the fight because of it. Not only that, some of you Ana players in Platinum just shoot enemies when there are friendlies low. Prioritize healing first and damage much, much later. Now, Zenyatta players, you are not a DPS. This time I mean it from a positioning standpoint. You can shoot at enemies all you want because you have some pretty good damage and you can heal your teammates while doing so, but make sure you are healing your teammates, you're keeping your orbs of harmony on squishier teammates because you should leave the burst healing to Ana and Mercy, and you should always be in a position where there is minimal fire coming back to you. Zenyatta doesn't have a damage drop-off, so sitting in back is optimal. Don't just rush up into the enemy team. Don't go chasing people for kills. Stay in back, keep your good positioning, and don't put yourself at risk. Now for Lucio players, you are not just kidding, guys. The Lucio players, you need to learn how to taxi. Taxi, that's it. If a fight is lost, leave. If a fight is being lost, leave. Go back to spawn. Stay there with the speed boost until everybody is regrouped. Use your speed to engage and disengage. Use your speed to get teammates back to the fight faster because if you don't have all 6, you shouldn't be pushing. Taxi people everywhere. If your team is waiting for someone in your spawn to push, you better be over there in your spawn with a speed boost. That way they can get there faster. Taxi as much as possible. And finally, Mercy players. Just switch to another support. I'm only kidding, guys. Kind of, really. If you're playing Mercy, you better be utilizing her revives. If you are constantly dying with the revive up, switch to another healer. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Mercies I'm coaching or I'm playing with make the claim that Mercy is the best support because Plat players can't handle revives. This could be very true, I don't know, but these players never revive. I absolutely despise it when Mercy says, revive is so powerful, we need a Mercy. But then they die. They just constantly die. They never revive. Mercy has very poor escapes, guys. That is just a fact. So if you can't keep yourself alive as Mercy, or you can't hide well enough to use your revives, there's no reason to be playing Mercy. You need to be switching to a different healer. That is my biggest tip. Also, revive more often. Don't save for the 5-man revive. 2-man revives and 3-man revives are totally acceptable. Those are totally okay things to do. 1-mans are questionable, but 2 and 3 are generally good, if it gives you an advantage in the fight. So we've talked about every role specifically and even some specific heroes. Now let's talk about some general tips that can apply to everyone that can help your ranked endeavor in Platinum. First tip is don't use an ultimate if the enemy has a direct counter to your ultimate unless you've baited out the counter. By this I mean don't Graviton Surge if the enemy Zenyatta has Transcendence unless you've planned out how you're going to out damage it or use an Ana grenade on it. Don't use Nano Boost on someone when you know the enemy Whole Hog is ready because they'll just knock back your nano boosted target. It's counters like this you need to be aware of and you need to be planning for and trying to bait out if you want to win games. My next tip for you all is don't always blame the DPS. And I say this because as the DPS player and as a higher ranked DPS player than Platinum, I have a good grasp of when I know I'm doing my job or not. And this happened a lot when I was playing Widowmaker. There are times when I knew I was getting valuable picks as Widowmaker, allowing us to push onto the enemy point, but then we'd lose that point and guess who would be blamed? Me. Directly me, simply because I was on a non-meta hero, even though I wasn't doing bad. It's so easy to blame the DPS, but it isn't always the problem. You guys really need to look deeper. You need to actually ask the DPS if they're doing their job, and if they are, then you need to respect that. On the flip side of things, there are some times when you positively know the DPS isn't doing their job, and when that's the case, you need to explain to them why you think they could be doing their job better, or you need to just switch, which is actually our next tip. Sometimes you need to just switch to a hero that needs to be switched to. Even if you're one of two supports and you have two DPSs already, if your team isn't dealing damage, you really need to be figuring that out. But you really need to know if your team isn't dealing enough damage, because switching to a DPS, if your DPSs are doing their job, is only going to hurt you in the end. And I guess all these tips can really just be summed up to communication. You need to be talking to your team. It's easy to tell who is and is not doing their job when you have good comms. It really is. But frequently in plat tier, I just hear salts. I don't hear good conversation. I just hear people yelling at other people, telling them how bad they are, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So don't be that guy. Before we go, I'm going to reiterate the same thing I said at the beginning of the video, because it's by far the most important tip I have for you. Trust your team. Don't chase after kills. Don't try to do everything yourself. Stand behind your Reinhardt's shield. Play with your team. That is all I have for you today. Hopefully this was helpful for you all. If you're stuck in Platinum, tell me if it is. If it's not, I can make a follow-up video if there's more you'd like to know. I can also make a follow-up video. These are by far the biggest problems I saw when I was climbing my alt account from Platinum to Diamond. And when you solve them, you can hopefully climb to Diamond. Hopefully these tips were helpful to you all. If they were, be sure to leave a like down below. Tell me what you think of the video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Lone Hawk, out.